Let's see. Okay, you are recording.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order for the Pottawattamie County Planning and Zoning Commission, June 20th, 2022. Juneteenth holiday. That doesn't just flow off my. So roll call.
Leaders,
Here.
Brett Larson,
Here.
Silkworth,
Here.
and for those of you who don't know, Jill Chapman is joining us on the Planning Commission. She's replacing Carrie's spot for the duration of the Carrie had left over, and then we'll go from there. So,
And I am here.
yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Here.
Tell us about your life story.
All right.
Later.
Let the record show Rick Larson is absent. And all the rest of everybody else is present.
All right. You've all had a chance to read the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes or make corrections?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Great. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Upon hearing that, I'd ask for a motion to open up the public hearing
You have
on.
to read the statement first.
Oh, I have to read the statement.
Yep.
A long statement.
I've done this once before.
There we go.
Really good.
Get 2 minutes.
Statement to be read. All right, here we go. The public hearings will be conducted pursuant to the Commission's rules of procedure. We will first hear the report of the Planning Director on the detailed information and observations regarding the request before the Commission, if not done so in written form prior to the hearing. Next, we will take the testimony of the applicant or his or her witnesses. And upon completion of the applicant's testimony, I will call upon members of the audience wishing to be heard concerning the request. Persons in favor of the request shall be heard first, followed by those opposed to it. At any time during the presentation of testimony, the members of the commission may interrupt to ask questions or to make comments on what has been said. Upon completion of all testimony, the applicant will be allowed to make a closing statement to the commission. Upon completion of the applicant's closing statement, I will entertain a motion from the commission to close the public hearing on the request. The commission reserves the right to ask questions of any member of the audience. However, we will not hear any unsolicited statements unless the public hearing is first reopened. Each speaker addressing this commission shall step forward to this podium and state your name and address before proceeding with your testimony or evidence. This commission shall not be bound by strict rules of evidence, but does reserve the right to exclude evidence or testimony that it may deem to be irrelevant, immaterial, incompetent, or unduly repetitious. As chairman, I will rule on all questions relating to the admissibility of evidence, which may be overruled by a majority of this commission. Continuances may be granted by the commission in case for good cause shown to any interested party who has entered their appearance. The commission may request continuance of a hearing for the purpose of giving further notice, taking further evidence, gathering further information, touring the proposed site, or for such other reasons as the commission may find sufficient. In such case, we shall state the specific reasons for the continuance and set a date, time, and place when the matter will be continued. All official actions of this commission will be made at a public meeting by motion made, seconded, and a polling of the membership. If conditions are imposed, such conditions shall be included in the motion or amendment thereto. And our final decision will be prepared in writing and will be part of the record, the public record of this commission. So with that, I'd like to open a public hearing for the first case on our agenda.
I will move to open public hearing for case number MIS 2022-01.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. Motion carried. The public hearing is open.
Great. So This is a case that we brought before the planning commission for recommendation that will go to the board of supervisors. In our comp plan that was adopted 2015, we are at what has transpired with this is we're currently working with City of Council Bluffs on a new 2-mile agreement, which I brought those maps here to kind of go over as well. During that process, Pam and I pulled back out the comp plan to look at some of the mapping that was done with that, and our future land use map on page 28, we noticed does not really reflect what is happening in that southwestern corridor of the county, in between where the city is annexed out for Google and Highway 275 with the interstate system. They have that currently, it is mapped out as riverfront ag production, which prohibits commercial and industrial uses except in the interstate interchanges. And we know that there's a number of commercial and industrial uses that are happening in this area. And it was actually happening in this area when this map was developed out. And so I don't know exactly how MAPPA missed what was going on in those areas, but Dallas Johnson Greenhouse has been out there for a long time. So had the industrial uses to the south on 192nd Street, along with the county and the city also share a shooting range that is in that area as well. But you know, a little bit to MAPPA's defense, in that time period, Google owned a large majority of that ground in there that they had purchased as a buffer for their data center that they have. In recent years, they have been selling off those quarter sections that they have purchased in there and realizing that they don't need that much of a buffer that they have, and people are, you know, they're buying them up as they come on for sale. Dolores and I had a little bit of conversation on this earlier today. The change that we're requesting here isn't reflective of anybody coming in saying that they want to do something specific. We don't have any big industry hanging out in the background. It was strictly on Pam and I's part to try to get this future land use map to at least reflect current conditions, and then from what we know from what the city has plans for in those areas, to change it to the urban transitional district. And that matches up in our comp plan a lot with the language that it has, a lot better than what the ag production has. The urban transitional areas are areas within half miles of the cities that are out there. And in those areas, I have highlighted out, you know, there's industrial areas and there's commercial areas within there as well. And so that is really the precipitous us bringing this before you. In our conversations today, we talked about, and you have these maps here in front of you. So that delineates out the shaded X portion of that is city limits of Council Bluffs. But it shows you kind of the floodplain area that is in that portion of this piece that we're talking about. Now, the ground that has the pink dots on it, that is the Pottawattamie County Community Foundation. I know they recently changed their name, but that is their ground. That was land gifted to them, and it can only ever be ag production. And they just make the money off of what comes off of that ground.
A rent?
Yes. So, and then you can see the area in there. There's a large portion of it that is protected by levee. Some of it is in the AH zone for FEMA floodplain, and that would be your groundwater flooding, ponding portion of it, I believe. So we wanted to make sure that you had that available to you. And then I did not make a copy of this, but you all may want to see. So here is the new joint. This is the area in which we're talking right now. So you can see the two different colors that the city has designated for it. And that is their city growth area 1B, which is here. And then the other one is city growth area 2. And so that's your green area, portion of it. But
Means
What-
flood zone, no flood zone, right?
no, that is just, so the policies is what we're working on with these right now. The policies for this map here only, goes for subdivision purposes, right? Basically, you're not gonna get another subdivision in this area unless you annex into the city. Because the Armstrong development that was put in here, the city is now fast tracking, sewer into this area because they want the Armstrong development annexed into them within 5 years. And then they're gonna continue to sewer and annex in as they go along 192nd Street down here to include all of this, incorporate all of this into the city. That's like one of their priority areas, right? The 1B over here, or the two is less of a priority for them. Sewer and water probably isn't gonna make it over here, but the 2B designation, what that would allow to happen is you do have some homes down here that sit on a 40-acre chunk of ground. It would allow those people to divide off just the house and sell either just the house or the farm ground. Right now, we currently don't have a way for them to do that. It's either all or nothing. And so they wouldn't require them to annex in. They could sell off either the house or the 40 acres. But, so it's not as restrictive as what's gonna be over here. Anything that happens over here is gonna trigger annexation into the city or an annexation agreement to the city. So,
Yep.
that's kind of what their plans
Future
are.
growth.
Yeah. The other maps that we have to show, because one thing dawned on me after I spoke to Dolores was, the JLUS study that was done, in partnership with MAPPA and a bunch of other people. The JLUS study was all about how do we keep Offutt Air Force Base here and, make sure that we don't put something within their flight path that would discourage anything happening. They were concerned at the time primarily about a bird strike because I believe it said in the JLUS study in 2008 they had a bird strike on an airplane. It wound up costing them $8 million. It was like the biggest loss that they had suffered taken off out of there. So what we have here on this is showing, this is Epley Airfield actually, and the Council Bluffs Airfield, what their flight paths are down through there. Because this was the other part, was the watershed, the protected watersheds. So these sections that are highlighted in pink are the sections that we're talking about. The yellow pieces of it are the known waterlands, protected waterlands. So you can see we have just a sliver of it that would be in 28, 29, and just a sliver of it that would be in 20 and a corner of 17 portion of it.
So what does this mean?
These are the priority wetland areas for the state of Iowa. There was a state code section that was written that made them go out and do a review of all of their priority wetlands in the entire state. They, NRCS mapped them all out. So I don't have a strong understanding, but my guess would be is that if you were to mess with any of these priority wetlands, that if you did it without some kind of permit or without some sort of restoration agreement, that there's gonna be large ramifications from the state side in order to correct those wetland areas.
And the pink dots that you have there is the property that we're talking about.
That is all the properties, yes, within that
And-
area.
And my eyesight isn't quite good enough to tell which of those are yellow and which of those are not.
So you can, I don't know if you can make out that line or not, but
It's this line here.
yes. So you can see how it just barely touches 17, a little bit into 20. And then down here at the bottom, you got a little bit further in from,
Kind of does this.
yeah. So those are your protected wetland areas, priority wetland areas.
Does that mean those wetlands are within somebody's personal property, right?
Could, yes, yeah, they're owned by somebody. Somebody has them, but if a development came in and said, hey, we're gonna come in there and we're gonna develop this piece of ground out, those wetlands are gonna push them. They may have to push their whole development off to one side and leave it untouched. And then they're gonna have to make sure whatever they do on there doesn't affect that wetland.
And then the bird strikes for the airplanes, you gotta watch out, because you're pushing the birds out, or
Right.
making them
They're gonna move.
more.
Yeah.
How do you move them?
Well, on the JLS study was just about making sure you weren't putting more wetlands in their flight path.
Uh-huh.
They didn't want anything further developed out wetland wise in their.
So they're good with what's existing?
Yes.
Okay.
It was, so you just, good, okay. So all of these factors kind of combined here is what brings us to just trying to get our future land use map up to, these other projects and things that are going on with it.
Sounds good?
Okay. Are there any land use categories that talk about, as you and I had talked earlier today, I was expressing a concern that on our primary entry into the city, we are pushing industrial kinds of uses all along our Interstate 29. And I'm really I'm very concerned about how that appears to the visitor who's coming into our city. And, agricultural land, I have issues with environment here as well, but I think my biggest concern is really what does this look like to the visitor and to us who use these roads every day in our own travel around our community and sense of community. And industrial uses or commercial uses don't always have that robust rules and regulations on what that kind of looks like, especially industrial uses. So I see that from your map that the areas that are most impactful are ones that the city of Council Bluffs is looking to annex in a short time period. But I'm still concerned about that from a countywide perspective, that these entrances into cities don't all get gunked up with industrial uses that have equipment and rooftops and pavement and very little in the landscape requirement. So how do we convey that kind of concern in a future land use plan? How could we do that?
It's tough for us to push that part of it because I think this, if you went to the city council bus and you talked about it to them, they would feel as though they are protecting it by designating that area as their city growth area. And they would feel that their design criteria and landscape pieces that they put in with those projects would be enough to protect that in there. It could be something that we approach the city on and ask them, are you doing enough to add landscaping and things like that for site barriers in on the interstate corridors? Because, when they, like with that recent corridor that went through Council Bluffs and they put up the new sound walls and decorated them all up, I'm sure that came from the state piece of it, not necessarily anything.
Federal government.
Yeah, anything from the city.
That's
But
right.
now seeing that, could they use that as an example and do some beautification things in those areas? So.
Like so many trees and what type of fencing and what type of,
Well, it's historically, this part of our city was a forest. It was a floodplain forest. Yeah, I mean, it would capture rain, it would hold on to water, it acted like a sponge.
swamp.
And it was all cleared and drained and I'm concerned about keeping our community resilient, so that when flood rises again, because it's not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. Will the levee hold? Will it not? All of those things kind of come to mind. The urban heat island that we have, and I understand the need for growing our industrial base and don't really take issue with that. We need to have places for it, but is the right place right along our interstate highway?
I think it seems to make sense. I mean, that's where you need your industrial. You don't wanna put it, I mean, I don't know where else you would put it.
Least likely
Middle
place
of
to build a
town,
house.
I mean, to me, that's where you need, I mean,
Oh, it was one of the.
industrial stuff needs transportation,
they
so
need
it makes
access,
sense.
absolutely.
I mean,
Rail.
It's
yeah.
nothing beautiful to look at, and
No, it's
it's
not.
it's not the kind of image that I want to project to my neighbor or to the visitor. I think it's really terrible what Mid-American Energy is doing with their stretch of the interstate. You know, that's ugly as all get out. It's ugly as all
Yep.
get out. And I don't see great buffers or landscape or restoration or environmental sort of activity going on there, and I don't see it in front of Bungie or the Dallas greenhouses or certainly not at these smaller industrial uses. And it's not that any one project is big, but you start taking that whole collective and it gets to be a really big issue.
And they do have in our, so I want to make sure I let you know that in the riverfront, low-lying agricultural production areas of the land use comp plan, it does have that the nature of the mostly flat lands has attracted the Interstate 29 and 680 corridors with their associated commercial uses at interstate interchanges. Generally, given the fact that large portions of this region are included in the floodplain of the Missouri River, very few of these areas are capable of sustaining the development. And I think you do see that. I mean, this is older. On that 680 corridor, I-29 north up there, you do see how the development has gone away from those areas because that northern section of the county is going to act as that flood barrier and take up that water. I mean, we almost have all the houses out of there now to a point where, I mean, you can, and we did receive the rest of the funding from the state. We're just waiting on a few other things to happen and we'll have the rest of the homes all purchased up in that area and torn down. And then the ones that want to leave anyway. So you will have that kind of area there that is the direct, in the floodplain of that Missouri River. This portion of it, I think, to me, it just didn't necessarily fall within that because I think you are going to continue to see that happen down there. And all we can do is really, even with that Mid-America project that you're talking about, I mean, I see that as somebody who goes around and enforces those codes through our grading and excavation ordinance and parts of what we have. And we would not allow that to happen the way it is. Just on a county standpoint, I've been perplexed at why the city has allowed that project to get so out of hand as it has. Like I said,
Which project is that?
the Mid-American dirt moving project they have down there. I mean, we've made numerous calls just on my parents' behalf, down from that Eagle Ridge neighborhood to where the dust coming off that thing is horrible. They don't have dust control measures on it or a lot of
Who
things.
enforces that then, since it's county? Is it
No, it's in the city.
Oh, that's what
Yeah,
the city.
so it's the city building department that would handle that. And but I think even you see the new National Concrete building that they have down there with their large pile of rubble and dirt and
It's
things.
a junkyard.
Yeah, it's right next to housing.
Well, yeah, that's my concern. Changing the future land use sort of indicates that we're open for business, that this is not imagined to be a long-range agricultural piece of property. I don't know that I disagree with that from a very long-term view, but I do disagree that there aren't enough regulations in place to present a decent face on it.
Right, you, stop, facade. So that's what we did in Colorado, I'm just.
Design standards.
Standards, landscaping, you could use corrugated steel. But here's the other thing, catch 22, if you want the county to grow, you can't restrict it so much because we're not a growth type, we gotta compete for Omaha. So you can't put too many restrictions on this county or they'll go across the street.
And we do have, with our building codes, we have the ability to add those pieces in there for, the styles of buildings. You see that now in the industrial development that's going on down there. I mean, the buildings that they're putting up are, they're beautiful buildings and they've done a great job with that subdivision. And hopefully as they see that go out, I think what you see on our side, it's a complete difference what you see on our side of the road. Because 192nd Street splits the city and the county right there for a section to what you see on the city side of the road. And again, it's another area where you have large rubble piles and things happening differently versus our standards and codes that we have available to us to use.
So we could add standards like what she's talking about, as in like a discussion and then that goes before you and the board of supervisors to finalize that, right?
Right.
If you wanna add it to the code. But you have
Like
to have standards.
You could add for land use plan piece of this, chapter 3 is the goals and policies of it. You could add a goal in here, because there really isn't one that pertains to
Landscape trees.
landscape, yeah,
We need
the
to add that, I
pieces
think.
of it. I mean, we could look at adding a goal in there, a goal for 3.6, and what that would, and try to come up with some verbiage to stick in there.
So you're just looking to make it aesthetically pleasing, but still allow them to continue to grow, right?
Yeah, I think it would be something,
That's how I'm
Yeah.
understanding, is that right?
the goal would be, we'd write out a goal statement to that, and then within that, the policy piece of it is where we would say, establish, so goal 3.5.3 is establish procedures for site plan review of commercial and industrial developments. And we did that with the addition in chapter 10. We added in grading and excavation portions of it, and that, so it would be similar to that. It would be establish procedures for design criteria review of commercial and industrial developments.
And then,
Is this time critical? I mean, do you think, do we need some time to prepare that language?
We would need time to prepare that language.
Yeah.
Yeah, like another,
So if we did a continuance on that, that would be enough time for you to prepare language?
yeah, I mean, you could if you wanted to do it at the same time. Mhm.
but you want this approved pretty much now, like continuance, from my experience, what she's at, that's a long time, months and months.
I don't think it'd be too hard to write up a goal statement, and to have the goal statement in here with the policy portion of it, that part isn't hard. The addition of the design criteria to the building code would take us a couple of months. Because we would have to write that code
But
section.
how would you prepare for that? What would you reference or compare?
So what we would do is we would look at other jurisdictions, like you mentioned, we go all across the country looking at jurisdictions on what their design criteria are, much like when we wrote our ADU ordinance.
Arapahoe County, just as an example, similar
Yeah.
size of Pottawattamie in Colorado, same layout,
Yeah,
mixed,
we would pull
it's
code, we would reach out to their, planning department.
That's what it was.
They're always really free about sharing code sections with us.
You talked to those guys?
They would if we,
Rocco?
I haven't, no,
Okay, yeah.
but,
That's
so
fine.
they could send us we would send their code criteria.
It's a similar
we-
setup, the whole county.
We try to match that all together with other ones that we see. We talk to them about lessons that they learned during the implementation of it and kind of go over, just so we have our heads wrapped around what it's gonna be when we implement it. And try to head off. We will normally hold some developer and builder meetings just to go over with them that, hey, we're looking at adding this code section in. And make sure the board of supervisors is all aware of it. But
Makes sense.
so that part takes a little while, but the other parts aren't, no, it's not that bad.
We still have the public hearing open.
Correct.
Are you finished with your introduction?
Yes, I'm finished.
Very good. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of this item on the agenda? Is there anyone who'd like to come forward and oppose? Questions and comments from members of the board? Ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second? Is there a second? Okay, it's been moved and forwarded, moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. The public hearing is closed. And ask if there's any other discussion amongst the members.
Well, Matt, could we go ahead and approve this tonight and then come back and do that later, add that verbiage?
Yes.
Should we do that? I mean, I think that'd probably be the better way.
Yeah.
Go ahead and get this going and then come back, have you do that work, get the verbiage for the code, and then come back and do that at a later time.
Yeah, we'll bring back a goal statement and the policies, next month.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
But there is not any particular cases that are pending this action of the board. Does this affect? This
We
does
don't
not.
have, like I said, we don't have, no industry came to us and said, hey, we need this
Yeah.
change so we can move in there.
Yeah.
This is just proactive on our side to try to get the comp plan aligned with what's happening.
Well, and
But doesn't the third case, that this needs to take place for the third case on the agenda?
Well, yeah, so we made one zoning change that did not end up going through, that we did not update our land use, the future land use map prior to, right? That does potentially give somebody a leg to stand on if they were to be, if they wanted to sue us over the zoning change that we made, they could go back and say, well, you didn't update your land use comp plan before you made the zoning change. So, yeah, it could potentially affect the third case. That's a little sliver. If somebody were to, I don't know that anybody's here for that today.
We're just
but-
reclassifying zoning, but then the building, they'll have to come back and meet the current building requirements at that point in time, right?
Yes,
So otherwise, there's no building yet,
and there won't be on this
so
particular
it's just
piece of ground.
reclassification of zoning.
Yes,
Right.
So zoning, it will still work with what Lynn's suggesting,
yes,
okay? Cause they have to get the approval to design and so on, and they still would have to meet current requirements, right?
right.
Once it's passed. And then let's say we bring it to us, we vote on it, goes back to you, to the board of supervisors, is that how it works?
Yes,
And then they approve or deny. Okay.
everything from
Yeah,
here
so
is
this
a-
has to go on to the board of supervisors anyway, so.
yeah.
Okay.
Everything from here goes to the board of supervisors for the
Right.
adoption.
So we should be good.
So, I would make that motion to amend the future land use map for the county comprehensive plan.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second?
Any more discussion? It's been moved and second. Roll call vote.
Leaders,
Yes.
Silkworth,
No.
Larson,
Yes.
and Chapman.
Yes.
Okay. It has been passed. Approved.
Okay, I'll make a motion to open public hearing for case ZMA 2022-02.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
Okay, let's open that public hearing. Oh, no, I have to take a vote first. All right. Roll call vote. Or
We can just.
You can
you
say
can
all.
just do it?
Yep.
Yeah.
All those say aye.
All those say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, the public hearing's open.
So this one's you. So this is, I gave in our staff report, sorry. 20736 McPherson. It's a zoning map amendment to reclassify approximately 3.91 acres from Class R2 urban transitional to Class C2, which is general commercial. The property here is located on McPherson Ave, has had a commercial style setup on it since around 1998 from what we can tell in the aerial photos. The area surrounding it has had kind of a mix of commercial, industrial, some residential out there. Starting in the 1960s was when kind of I don't know if it was a convenience store that kind of popped up at the corner of State Orchard. It was like around the 1970s is when the old Rolla Arena opened up, and around 73 there was some industrial that got added just behind those pieces there, and then in the 1970s the substation was on the corner of Hubbard and McPherson. Then you had a kind of a convenience store. It's now Player Chiropractic down there on the corner of Sunnydale, and then the trailer court on just around the corner there in the 1960s as well. So
All right,
So basically, it's been there, just making it legal.
yeah, Mr. Crilly's had a conditional use permit. He lives out on Hackberry Road by the water tower out there. He came to the zoning board to just make a conditional use permit for an automobile dealership that he operates out of his home. He was able to purchase this property a few years back and has been working on cleaning it up to a point to where he could move his car dealership down to this property. You can't do that by conditional use permit because he does not reside at this property. So this change in zoning would allow him to operate his automobile dealership out of there. But realizing that that's not the only use, when you look down through the C2 district, antique shops, apparel stores, art galleries, automobile washing stations, bakeries, banks, barbershops, bars and cocktail lounges, but in those, they do have setbacks from residential, which it would be, further back. Bicycle shops, bookstores, camera shops, candy, nut, and confectionery, carpenter or cabinet making places, carpet and drapery stores, catering establishments, dairy, drug department stores, drug stores and pharmacies, dry goods. So all of these different uses would be potentially be something that down the road would open it up. But when you look at the kind of the area that they have down through there, there's an auto body place, right, kind of sits right at the corner of State Orchard. They have it's now kind of apartments in the old convenience store area, but then they have the storage places that's over there. And then the Roll Arena is now a wrestling club. It's been a CrossFit in the past. I think they also might have a yoga studio kind of down in that parking lot as well. Dr. Players opened up his chiropractic operation down there on the corner. So it's still kind of that feel of just the outer skirts of Council Bluffs that has some of those different businesses that go on down there. But
would the applicant like to come forward and offer your perspective?
Yeah.
Karis Crilly, I'm here on the property on 2736 McPherson Road. So I bought the property with what Matt had said on the intention of moving my dealership over. It's a very small dealership and it's not, not probably 25 cars a year is what I sell. It's mostly to like friends, family, and kids that go to, you know, the kids that go to Underwood, a lot of their parents buy cars from me. So it's more of that side. You know, I would do minimal repair. It wouldn't be anything major. You know, there's no painting, there's nothing like that. It's all pretty much just R&R type work. So, when I bought the property, I was kind of under the impression too that it was, because the guy that I had bought it from was actually from my hometown, Dunlap, Iowa. And I thought it was, he kind of made it sound like it was commercial, and I didn't really look into it that deep, so I bought it. And I've honestly spent like the past 4 years trying to clean it up, because when he had owned it, he had all the, you know, the gullies and the waterways that fall at the property, because it's a pretty steep property. He had those completely filled full of like old refrigerators, tires. I literally probably took out at least a semi-trailer full of tires, old tires that I had to pay for myself and dispose of. So, and I've dug things up that shouldn't have been buried. It was, you know, like cars and car parts, stuff like that, metal that should have been recycled. But I went through that whole property, and it's taken me since I bought the place, 4.5 years, spending time to try to clean it up. 'Cause I kind of feel the same way you do about the environment. You know, that's basically, you know, it's already been being used that prior to me anyway. And I just kind of want to, like what he said, I want to make it legal. So
Where's your car dealership now?
it's at my house.
And where?
It's out by McClelland. It's like off of, it's on Hackberry Road. So, like off of Highway 6.
You know
And
where
that's the
Ventry
other
Water
thing.
Tower's at?
Yeah.
Yep.
Go north from there. Hackberry's the first.
Oh, like
road.
on the gravel road?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, 'cause it's a full legitimate operation. I have the DOT come out probably every
Never
3
did that. Live over that way.
What's that?
I live over that way, so.
Yeah, well, it's just been, honestly, it's been a hobby that I've had all my life. My dad had a dealership when I was 13, car dealership in Denison, Iowa, and I just kind of, it's more of I don't want to call it a hobby, because it's not a hobby. You know, it's basically my second job. So it's not my primary focus, but I work there literally every day for probably somewhere between, you know, I work my regular job. I probably work anywhere from 4 to 6 hours there every day, whether it's maintaining the property, trying to clean it up, because I still have lots of cleanup left, but it's getting close to the end of it, and that's kind of why I'm here now, so.
Any questions for
Yeah,
us?
you have any questions?
Sounds good.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else who'd like to speak in favor? Anybody opposed? All right. Any questions from members of the board? And staff's recommendation?
Our recommendation is to approve the change that fits what's going on.
Okay. A motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion to close public hearing?
Second?
Second.
It's been moved in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Public hearing is closed. Any discussion among our members here?
Nope.
If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve as written, case ZMA 2022-02.
I have a motion.
I second it.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Chapman?
Yes or no?
Yes, sorry.
Larson?
Yes.
Leaders?
Yes.
Support.
Yes. Your case has been approved.
So Pam will be in touch, because the next step will be Board of Supervisors meeting.
If you need a car.
Pam.
Spot it.
Thank you. All right, I'll make a motion to open public hearing for case number ZMA 2022-03.
Thank you. Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Public hearing is open.
The applicants on this did let me know they weren't gonna be able to make it to the meeting tonight, so I can run through this one here as well. The applicants have requested approximately 2.3 .91 acres of their 27.47 acre parcel, which is currently zoned A3 Riverfront and Agricultural Production District, to be rezoned to I1 Limited Industrial. They have granted an easement area to Lot 2 of the I-29, I-80 Industrial Park, which we include that as attachment 1. The properties in the immediate area are a mixture of agricultural ground and industrial properties. I-29 and the railroad are close in proximity. And on the maps, you can see the highlighted section with the little star on it. That's the area in which we're talking there. It lies adjacent, right directly north of the I-29 industrial park that we have there. So they included an easement and the survey that they did for it. Now the I-1 district, this one is being sought after because of a direct change. First Student Busing has purchased the building and that lot that resides there, but it does not come with enough parking for their buses out there. So that's what this area is going to be used. It's not to be constructed on other than just for parking. So they'll be parking their buses out there. So, but there is obviously a lot of different uses that go with the I-1 district on there, and but obviously the county's pretty heavily invested in that industrial development that's going on down there. Portion of that is to make sure that we stay current with our RISE grant from the Iowa DOT, which requires us to have so many new jobs to the area in there. And so, of course, we're supportive of the change to I-1.
But our industrial code does not require much at all no requirements for buffering these hundreds of buses that will be parked in this lot, right? How many buses will they park in this lot?
I don't know the number of buses that they have.
They take over for all of Lewis Central now?
I don't know
50-50.
if they are doing those. Essentially, I know they do the city of council busing, right?
They could use that too, right, if they wanted to, because it's the same company. You need Lewis Central or?
Right, Lewis Central was, I think, but Lewis Central just constructed their own new bus barn.
Oh, so it's nothing to do with Lewis Central?
Right, I don't
Okay.
think they have anything to do with Lewis Central, because Lewis Central was looking at this as a spot for their new bus barn, but
They got a new one.
ultimately decided to build on campus there
Right.
that they have, so.
Okey-doke.
They did it proactively, so part of, like I said, proactively, if we ask them to do screening down there and plant some trees or, some landscaping in there, I do believe that they would. Jason Armstrong, the owner of the development down there, when he originally came to me and talked to me about this, he's like, when he was asking me what my concerns would be, my original concern that I had was protection of that new road that we got put in down there. I said, you can't have a bunch of buses coming off gravel, jumping onto that new asphalt road that we have down there. So, they just went down, they paved it now. So the entrance on and off that easement is all paved for that. And he just called me.
Concrete or?
Yeah, he just called me up and he was like, hey, we paved that just to let you know. And I mean, it wasn't something that I put out there, you have to pave this or anything. I mean, they just did that proactively. He's like, it made sense to protect the road. Cause he's invested in that road as well. And so, if we ask him to put in some screening things down there to pretty up the place,
I would.
he will.
And we have the 75-foot setback that still is required, or does that not apply in this zoning district?
That does not apply in the zoning district.
What is the setback, do you know?
I think it's 25 feet.
25 in industrial, unless it abuts residential.
And if it's residential, what's it, 15 feet? 15?
50.
50 feet in the residential area? No, I mean just like residential and residential.
Oh, the 75.
75.
And is there a requirement for buffering toward the trail? That's the trail behind it, right?
No, that's
that's
the
the
railroad track.
The railroad.
Existing.
Mhm.
The trail's quite a ways off from, the
Yeah.
trail actually buffers this from 275.
Yeah.
So it's just strictly for parking buses.
Correct.
Okay. Is there any, we still have the public hearing
Yes.
open on this one, right? And is there anyone else that wants to speak in favor or against this item on the agenda? I'd like a motion to close the public hearing then.
Second, right? Can I do that now?
You're gonna make
Or
the
you
motion.
make the
Yeah.
motion.
You're the first one.
I need a rule
Yeah.
book.
Okay, just make
Just
a
wing it.
motion.
So what do you mean make a motion? You're at the walk through
Close the
this.
public
Close.
hearing.
You make the motion to close it.
You make a motion to close.
But just say that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
There
just,
you go.
That's it. Just say motion to close public hearing.
Motion to close public hearing.
that's great.
I second it.
Good.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, the same sign. Motion carried, the public hearing is closed. Any more discussion amongst our members? If not, I'd look for a motion.
Anybody?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve as written, case, ZMA 2022-03.
Second it?
All right, it's been moved and seconded. We'll take a vote.
Brett Larson,
Yes.
Lynn Leaders,
Yes.
Jill Chapman,
Yes.
and Dolores Sipple.
Yes. I am sorry.
Oh.
I
Oh,
was-
you almost made it without that.
I was,
Wow.
I was on site today. Can you tell how, with that volume, that I wasn't? Okay, so,
Is there any other business?
yeah, is there any other business?
No other business for the commission tonight?
Very good.
Next meeting, anything on the agenda so far for next, or for us to have a meeting next month?
Well, depends on.
We'll
how
have the,
quickly
we'll have
we're
the
into
goal
goals.
language, we'll bring the goal language back, but I don't think we have any cases that have come up.
Not yet.
Sounds good. Nice seeing you.
Yeah. it's-
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I ask a question though? I know we're all done, but can I see that map you guys just